G'day. What comes to mind when you think of Christmas? For me it's oysters, barbecue, sunburn, but the main thing I think about is glass baubles. Every Christmas I buy a few new ones, but they just don't seem to last. So this year, instead of buying more, I'll make my own ornaments, which will last a lifetime. And in this video, I'll show you how. I'll be making these ornaments out of brass and copper sheet, mainly because they can't break, and I can add texture, shape and colour in a heap of ways. You can get these sheets from jewellery or plumbing suppliers, usually for a pretty affordable price. Now since a circle is basically a flat ball, that's the shape I'm going to run with. You could use a protractor, but I find anything circular like this roll of tape and jar of wood filler to be just fine. You want to have a pair of cutters. The yellow is for straight cuts, and the red ones are for curves. Cutting copper is pretty easy because the sheet is thinner and the metal softer. But brass is trickier and requires a bit more gumption. If you're a part of that exclusive club where cutting perfect circles is your thing, you can skip the next step. Well, I'm not in the club, so I'm using the belt sander to bring it closer to the line. If you don't have one of these, no worries. Stick a sheet of sandpaper to a flat board and flick your wrist the old-fashioned way. By chance I realised by rotating the piece around a centre line on the edge of the belt, it created this pretty nice geometric pattern, so I reckon I'll keep this one. Now have a look around your workshop for hard things to bash the metal with, anything that will leave a mark. Could be ball peen hammers or flat nose hammers, some stone chisels or a little embossing stick. That said, be critical about the mark you want to leave. These hammers have a bit of rust on them, so every small deviation will get imprinted into the metal. If that's not your thing, just give it a polish. I'm using this small anvil made from railway track, but any flat lump of steel would do. Using the ball on this hammer, I'm printing in small divots. As you bash the metal, it will begin to cup and warp. You can either flip it over and flatten it, or keep the warp for added depth. In this one I hammered half on one side and again on the other, causing the piece to bend into a wave. Once you've got the feeling of the metal and how to work it, just start having fun. Start playing around with different ends of the hammer or different textures, different shapes, different patterns, whatever comes to mind. If you're now thinking, hey Mr. Rosie, I don't have a piece of metal to bash onto. Well, that's okay. I didn't either, and for a long time I just used a chunk of tree, which works just fine. The secret to this tree, however, is the cut I carved into it. It kind of acts like a poor man's swage block, which is an extremely expensive tool used to make bowls. Rotating the piece with each hammer blow helps shape the metal to the contours of the cut. In this one I flipped it over and worked the centre back in, and continued refining it to create this sort of sombrero looking thing. For the brass bowl, I used the wire brush on the drill to give it a dappled shine for a bit of extra character. Because the wood is softer, you can also take the textured ones made earlier and work those into different cup shapes without ruining the original imprints. With any experiment, some things just didn't work out. So I'm separating the pieces I'm not happy with, and we're going to give them a bath of urine and salt. To create the patina, I'm going to use the ammonia fumes and salt trick, which you may have seen in my jewelry box video. The process is pretty simple. First, you need to set up a container to hold the pieces in, so they don't touch the ammonia at the base. Next, dissolve the salt in a little water and paint it onto your ornaments, like you would a Christmas ham. Not that I know what that's like, because it's 35 degrees at Christmas here in Australia and I couldn't think of anything worse. When you're done, season it with some more salt and pour in a good dollop of ammonia at the bottom before sealing it up. Tuck that away for a few days, and in the meantime, move back to your other dish, ornaments. To hang the ornament, we need to drill a small hole for the wire. I can recommend breaking your brand new drill bit and moving up to the next size, in this case 2mm. Drilling a hole will cause a little burr on the back, so you can use sandpaper, or if you have one, a Dremel. You'll find sanding it on a flat plate won't work too well, but you can use this to your advantage, with some light hand sanding which will polish the high spots and leave the low spots in the matte finish for some great contrast. I want all the pieces to be different, but collectively to work as a set. By playing around with the finish, some will have texture, others polished, and some others matte. A Dremel with a 320 grit wheel works really well for the cup shape, but just make sure you support it better than I did. You could then fully polish it for a mirror finish, but I prefer this slightly textured shine instead. To stop the ornaments from oxidizing and losing their shine, I'm sealing it with this expensive protective coating. You could equally just get a spray sealer from your hardware store, but I found they don't always last. While those dry, let's check on our patina. The brass definitely came out the best, but I'll be honest, I've never had copper go black before. And that's the tricky thing with patinas, they just never come out the same. I used paper towel to blot the moisture off. Be careful not to wipe, otherwise you will remove all that nice blue before it dries. Much like the polishing, I sanded all the high spots, which helped the divots pop. But in the end, the patina wasn't uniform enough, and the pieces looked more like Rudolph's nose after a night out. I wasn't happy, so I cut my losses and tried it all again. This time I sprayed it with salt water and hung it vertically so any residual moisture can drain off. After a day, I reckon that was a good call. The blue was much more uniform, the copper didn't go black, and after a little cleanup and some of that protective coating, they came together as a nice little set. Except for this one, but everyone has a black sheep in the family somewhere. You know, this project wasn't so much about replacing those expensive glass baubles, but more of a protest to not buy the plastic alternative. So if you fancy a Christmas tree which stands out from the rest, have a go at these, and remember, why buy when you can make? Thanks for watching.